Well, hello everyone, and welcome back in. This is episode 4 of our Lee project, and this time I thought we would take a little bit closer look at the weathering of this model using both the combination of the weathering pencils and oil paints. Take our time a little bit more and explore these two techniques as they work together. Let's get moving. Well, before I dive straight into the weathering on the Lee, I thought it might be a nice idea just to have kind of a quick overview of the pencils themselves, because I know that they're a relatively new tool and many of you may not have much, if any at all, experience using them. Well, one method for application using the pencils is simply just to, just draw onto your models. And for the best results, the surface of your model, the paint, should be a matte or a flat coat. And this gives the pencils a little bit of something to grab onto so it sticks to the surface of the model. This application of dry pencil onto the surface I find is particularly useful for making chips and scratches on the model, anything that needs a harder edge. On those occasions where I would like a little bit more of a softer appearance, a little bit more faded or blended, a brush moistened with a little bit of water, just simply dab that over the color on the surface, and that will fade or remove a little bit of the color that's on the surface. And it's particularly good when you start weathering because that will lead to that kind of a dusty, dirty effect, not those hard edges like would be a chip or a scrape. Another idea for creating more transparent or faded effects is to first apply water onto the surface and then draw using the pencils. And as you're drawing, the water activates the lead of the pencils and kind of just distributes the color over that area where the water is. And so these make really nice faded or wind-blown dust types of effects. So one more idea I came up with when using the pencils is, well, of course, from time to time you need to sharpen your pencils just to do the work, whether you're drawing on or using one of those blending methods. And I used to just sharpen the pencil over the trash can and everything would go into the wastebasket. But then I got to thinking, well, these shavings are actually color. So if I capture the colors, these shavings, and then in this case, I just apply a little bit of water to them, well, it activates the shavings and makes what I'm calling pencil paint. Well, now as we transition into the actual weathering of this Lee, you can see that I'm using the pencil paints in order to distribute some of this sand color into the road wheels. And this is important because, again, I need to balance the use of the oil colors and the pencil colors. And as of yet, I had not used any of the pencils on the lower part of the hull, so this helps me do that. For the remainder of this video, what I thought I'd like to do is just have a little bit longer conversation on using these oils and the weathering pencils in tandem together. And so at first, let's start here with this fender and just kind of see this through from beginning to end. My first step here on the fender is simply to add a foundational color, and that being this sand color that I like so much. And I'm just applying those around the edges where I'd like some heavier accumulations. And then with that, I'm adding that dirty white color, the same color I used in episode 3. And the color, those two colors together, I find to make a really nice dusty appearance. Now, I just want to go ahead and blend and feather this in so once again it looks a little bit more dusty and dirty, not so much just scribbled on. And for that, again, I'm using a brush dampened with a little bit of water. And the pressure on the brush is very, very light. It doesn't take very much to activate and, yes, even erase a little bit of that paint. And that's exactly what I'm looking to do. Now here's the cool thing about using the pencils and the oils together. Keep in mind that the pencils are water-based and the oils are thinner-based, so they do not react with one another. So I can immediately go right over the top of the pencils with the oil colors. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just adding a little bit of similar tones of the oils as I used with the pencils and just reinforcing some of these different areas. And I think one thing to keep in mind as you're working with these two tools together is that you're not trying to necessarily create the same effect with the pencil that an oil can give you, or say vice versa. What you're trying to do is use the strength of each of these different tools in order to create a combined effect or layers of effects that look great to the eye. So in a little bit more detail as a recap, the pencils do a really good job of laying foundational colors. They have some nice opacity to them, more so than oil paints will. And then you can fade them out a little bit, like I said, with a little bit of water. But what they don't do nearly as well as oils do is allow you that bit of transparency or blending power. And so that's why the oils are important to use in combination with it. Then you get the best of both worlds. And then moving quickly, I can come right back in with the pencils right over the top of the oils. I can add some scrapes and scratches using a darker green color. I could fade those back a little bit with the water, and then I can return right back with the oils once again without fear of disturbing what I just did with the pencils. Well, as we watch me fiddle back and forth between the pencils and the oils, I can tell you that in real time, this fender section that you're watching on the video here took me about a half hour's worth of work in real time. And this has been condensed down to about 3 or 4 minutes on the video here. Let's try one more little example here. And for this one, I've started with the dark green color on the pencil, and I'm just adding some little scuffs and scrapes and kind of burnishing those high points around the edges here. And then I'll come right back in again with that brush that's just moistened with a little bit of water, just to get some of these marks to kind of settle back a little bit further into the background. Now at this point, I can come right back in with oil paints over the top of the pencils and begin with the weathering effects. The use of the oils is exactly the same as I've done on my other models, and that is just add a little bit of color, and just especially along some of the recesses and edges, and then I'll take a clean brush that's nearly dry, just a little bit of thinner, and just feather those back and blend them back into the surface. And this process between using the oils and the pencils, I'll repeat them over and over again to build up the layers, as you see right here. So let's do one more example, because I wasn't kidding when I said we're going to go in depth on this process. My idea for this area is to really emphasize that crew hatch and the effect of the crew members going in and out of this hatch, and how the paint around the edge would be kind of burnished or polished. So I've begun with a combination of its dark green and a brown in oil paints, and I'm just kind of working that along the edges there just to start establishing that tone, that kind of dark, worn tone. Using the pencil, I'm just going to add some blemishes. Now, that's kind of a broad word, but these are just like scrapes and scuffs and a little bit of scratching and discoloration to the base color. And the pencil's great for doing this because you can really you can be very precise, and you can be very, very random by just kind of quickly moving over the surface. And this just adds a really nice basis underneath what will come next on the weathering steps. And then along with that green color, I'm just going to enhance some of these edges and a few of these areas using that same dirty white color that I've been using all along. I just find this kind of brightens it up just slightly, but I'm using this very sparingly. And then as before, I just take a brush that's dampened with water, and I just blend back ever so slightly some of those scuffs and scratches that I made with the pencils. And it just softens those visually and just adds just a little bit of nuanced effects to the surface. And then of course, once again, I come back in with the oil paints, this being the dust color, and we're just adding some of these dust effects, and it'll be exactly the same process, going back and forth between the paints and the pencils, adding paint, blending back in with a clean, dry brush. So let me kind of fast forward a little bit here, a little bit of a jump cut, and you can see that I've added a few more layers of both pencil and oils. So we're starting to get down to kind of the finishing stages on this particular section of the model. And I just want to be able to now start making sure that I'm tying in the color tones all the way around the vehicle. And that's done, again, both with the color selections on the oil paints and of the pencils. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this little bit longer look at least this process, my technique of trying to use both the pencils and the oils simultaneously. If you do enjoy this channel and haven't done so already, please hit that like and subscribe. It does help the channel get out to a few more people. If you would like to support this channel even further, I do have a Patreon page, and the link for that is in the description below. Patreons enjoy exclusive content, including, for instance, I had a longer form video, actually 2 of them, which I posted onto the page a few weeks ago describing the same process. Of course, the message board on that page is always open for questions and chat. And until the next time, keep up the good work and happy modeling. We'll see you soon. Take care.